Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissick and Dana Gentry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissick.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Hey, Dana, how are you?
I'm doing good. I forgot to say that, how'd you do with daylight savings time? It's like 8 o'clock and it's not dark yet here. I'm loving it.
I know. You know how I did. I totally forgot to get on our podcast at 6 because my clock still said 5:30. So that's how I did. I was behind on most things today. And it's going to be even harder because I'm going to go to the Pacific time zone tomorrow. So that's even 2 hours behind. Oh, do they move? I wonder. I don't think they move.
I think everybody moves.
Oh, no, you're sure?
I don't know.
I don't know. I used to be so screwed up because most of my region was on Eastern time, but there's a little piece that's on Central. And it was just the hardest thing to ever figure out. So I don't know.
I don't know. I'm glad I'm not switching time. I can't do time zones normal anyway, much less with a spring forward. So I have no clue.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we're just lucky we got getting this podcast done. So yeah, but all good. We had family in. We're starting our spring break, headed to California, San Diego. Gonna get some sun. I'm so ready for some sun.
Oh, me too. It cannot come soon enough. Have
you ever played? I got to ask you something. Have you ever played pickleball?
No.
Oh my gosh. Everybody in Ohio, all they do is talk about pickleball. Okay.
Everybody loves it.
I know. I think it's kind of an old person game though, to be honest with you. So I'm going to be playing it anyway, but
people like that. It's like tennis, but shorter distance.
Yes. You're only on half of the court.
Right.
So, Press, you've been to my house. So, Press had a half court basketball court, right? Well, we're going to it's still going to be a basketball court, but the goal is going to go up and we're going to make it a pickleball court.
Oh, that's
because
fun.
Around here, you have to rent the pickleball courts and they're always booked.
Yeah.
And you have to, do them for 2 hours. Well, I don't have 2 hours to play pickleball. I have an hour because that's what it would take me to run 4 miles,
It's great exercise though.
Oh yeah. I can't wait. So I'm super pumped about that.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Now his mom, Adam's mom's a big tennis player. And she's in her 70s and she still plays, but they've recently gotten into pickleball because it's not all the running. So like when your knees are bad, you can do pickleball easier. Yeah,
it's hard because you don't do an overhand serve. So I took tennis in college, so I always do a overhand serve. You don't do that on pickleball. So that part was hard for me to get out of. But once I kind of got that out of my system, I was okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So you and I are going to talk about, I always get asked all the time, what books are you reading? Do you do this? Do you read like 3 or 4 at one time?
Yes. Yes, it's bad. Well, I listen to them and I read So
I'm going to tell you the books I'm reading, and then you and I are going to talk about the one that we're both reading, which is called Win the Day. But right now I'm rereading, I'm getting coached by Joel Manby, right?
Yes.
I told you I did that. I'm so excited. I'll tell you about it. And if it's something you think you're interested, you can do the next round. But it's called Love Works. So I'm rereading that because I figured
that book.
Perfect. So I've already sent him a long email with lots of questions.
Oh yeah, I've got mine. Actually, I'm looking at it right here. I love that book.
And then I always read books on habits. I'm reading Tony Robbins' new book, Life Force.
I almost bought that at Target today. And then I was like, no, I'm already reading 3 books. So I'm just going to wait.
Yeah. I'm loving it. I just always love anything. Of course, it's how to live healthier and have more energy and all of those things. So I just started it this morning, so I haven't gotten very far in it, but you and I both have read, and now you're rereading, right? Win the Day. So we're going to talk about that today. And I'm really excited because Joel Manby actually knows James. What's his last name? James Batterson.
Mark Batterson.
I'm Mark Batterson. Sorry.
Yes.
And yes. And so I'm excited because I didn't want to ask in my first session with Joel, hey, here's the people I'd like on my podcast. Will you do it? Will Mark? Who else do you know? I decided I'd build a little emotional capital first. Right. And then I'm going to have my long list of great authors that he knows that I want to be on our podcast.
One of my goals is to meet Mark Batterson in person. I actually put him on my survey from Exchange last year. You know how they always say, who are people that you'd like to hear? I was like, please get Mark Batterson.
Yeah, I bet he will. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, he's great.
So awesome. So Win the Day. Tell me, you're the one that told me about this book. I told you about Yellow Tux, but you told me about this book.
Yeah, so Chase the Lion was my favorite book of the year last year. I mean, it's been so impactful. I'm actually getting ready to do a book club / Bible study on that, I think, with all my offices. I'm just trying to work on the calendar. But I read that book. Jen Davis sent me that book as a gift, and I just blew my mind.
Was it Jen Davis or the girl from Canada?
It was Jen Davis that sent me Chase the Lion.
Okay, because the girl from Canada sent us Thirst and another book. Yes.
The Bob Goff book.
Yes.
Yes, I can't think of the name of it, which I haven't read that one. I read Thirst, but I haven't read the other one yet. But yeah, Jen Davis sent me Chase the Lion probably 2 years ago. And then I just didn't read it. And then I read it and loved it. And so I loved it so much. I was actually talking to somebody else about it. And they said, well, all of his books are good. And I said, well, I've never read any more. So I got on and looked and found Win the Day, which is 7 daily habits to help you stress less and accomplish more. And so the first time I just listened to it on Audible in the car driving back and forth from South Carolina to Kentucky. And I was like, oh man, this is great. So then I had to get the book. And so then I just finished rereading it because I wanted to make all my notes and do all that stuff. And I love it so much.
Awesome. So give me what was one of the key things you wrote down to share today?
Yep. So the first one it's in the very beginning. It's actually in the introduction. And he talks about so many people are overwhelmed by so many things right now. We're paralyzed by the things that we cannot change, which are the past. And we're crippled by things that we can't control, which is the future. And so he said the solution is as good as a place to start to any. Let go of dead yesterdays and unborn tomorrows. And he basically said, you simply put the focus on inputs rather than outcomes. If yesterday is history and tomorrow is a mystery, then win the day today. And that kind of starts the whole entire book, because he said, when you win today, tomorrow takes care of itself. And if you do that enough days in a row, then you can accomplish anything. And so he talks about doing little daily rituals. And I know you're big on habits, and I have been too. And I'm not a very habitual person, so I have to really work on it. But I've been missing taking my vitamins lately. For before I got COVID, I was obsessed. I never missed a day. Then I got COVID, and then I was like, nah, oh well, I can skip a day or two. And so I've been trying to get back. So I just this afternoon put all my vitamins all out on the countertop in these little things, put each in a little baggie, and did it for the next 14 days so that I can just grab that bag in the morning. Because I'm always in a hurry, I miss the habit, because in the morning I'm like, I got to open this bottle, open this bottle, where yours come in those little things,
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to make those. So I just got all mine together, put them in little bags, and now I'll just grab one out the door and go every morning. But it's simple little things like that, that if you can put them in a daily ritual, then you can win the day.
Well, then that ties into one of the first things I wrote down about what he wrote. He put bad habits, make a list of the bad habits that waste time, talent, and treasure, and then identify the good habits that net the highest return. And, I thought about that, and I think about my bad habits, but I never really think about what are the good habits that I have that are just, they're because they're good. I don't really give them credit. And I've been reading so many habit books this year. That's another person we're going to get on this, Charles Duhigg or something. I can't remember which habit book he wrote, but I heard him on a podcast and he gave out his email, and I'm like, oh buddy, cool. You're going to be on our podcast. But I had never thought about making a list of all the good habits that you already have, because so everything is a habit that you do naturally that you don't think about doing. But, because in one of my habits books, I had read that you tie something that's difficult to do next to something that is a natural habit to do. So one of the things, speaking of pills, sometimes my evening ones are hard for me. So I heard, put them beside your bed, because I always take a drink of water before I go to bed. Take my watch off and lay it on the charger, and I plug my phone in. So I'm like, okay, those pills could be laying right there at that moment.
Yeah, that's what I had to do in the morning. When I was taking them in the morning before I set them right next to my toothbrush, because I knew if I brushed my teeth that I would take my vitamins really fast. But that stuff works. You forget about little things like that make a big difference.
Yeah, and I think too, the other part about the bad habits that waste your time, talents, and treasure, I don't think we identify the consequence of bad habits, or what talents it's wasting or what treasure it's costing. So I had never really thought about it like that. I think when it becomes more important than you tend. It's so funny. I've got a new trainer. I think I told you this. I have a new trainer because my girl trainer that I love, that I took to San Diego with me and everything, she couldn't come to my house because she's just so booked.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I had to switch trainers, and I like this guy and everything, but I mean, he just thinks that he's just going to tell me that stretching is good for me and I'm going to do it. And I keep telling him, it's not that I don't know stretching and rolling is good for me. I do know that. We're just going to have to figure out how. So now here's what we've done. And I just say to him, I said, look, my philosophy is this: if I don't do something that I know is super important, I'm missing a system or a person or something. Yeah. So we have now added a third day when I'm at home. And the third day we do half workout and half rolling. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
It's so painful.
So painful. But I have to tell you, my sleeping at night, my hips aren't aching as bad. Wow. There's so many benefits from it. But I still crack up because it's like, okay, here's another trainer that thinks because he's going to tell me, and here's so funny. You know what I do to stop them from doing that? I start talking about wealth building. And what have you done since I gave you my book? I get on something that I know is not easy for them, so they'll get off of me.
They're like, we don't want that. Are you sure that other girl was too booked? That might be why she doesn't want to come to your house anymore.
That's true. That's true. No, if they don't bug me, I don't bug them. I mean, if they want to talk about it, I always coach them and help them. But if they don't want to talk about it or they don't want to do it, I don't bug them until they start bugging me to do something that I'm not doing very well. And then I'm going to get after them.
Oh my gosh, I love it. That's so funny. The next thing I put down in here, let's see it. Man, I had so many. I loved this. This sentence is in here so many times. Almost anybody can accomplish almost anything if they work at it long enough, hard enough, and smart enough.
Yes.
I love that. He said, we don't succeed in spite of the disadvantages, difficulties, or disappointments. We succeed because of them if we learn how to leverage them. So no matter, and actually, he mentions the book that I haven't read, and it's super old, Dale Carnegie, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living.
Yeah.
I want to order that.
There's a thrift book place called abebooks.com that's like out of print books and different things like that. You can probably find it at.
Oh, I've never heard of that. Okay, I'm writing that down right now on here, so I'll make sure I go and do it. But I think that's so true. He talks about you're capable of more than you really imagine. Your brain has no idea what your body is capable of, and your body has no idea what your brain is capable of. But once you connect those dots, all bets are off. And I just think that that's so great, because I think sometimes we don't realize what we truly can accomplish. And I've been really trying to focus this year on going back and being happy with the things that I have accomplished, instead of just like, on to the next, or worrying about what I still want to accomplish. And I don't take time enough to do that. And so I think it's a combination, but I loved that part. I thought it was so good.
Yeah. And I think, we put too much, and this is something he says in his book, we put too much emphasis. We overstate talent, thinking that somebody is doing something because they're super talented, when in reality, 99% of the time, they're doing it because they don't give up. Yep. They keep trying.
Yep.
And they figure out ways. And if they do have handicaps, it almost works in their favor, because it forces them to figure out a different way to get there, because they don't naturally have the talent.
Well, I wasn't going to read it because it was way too long of a story in here, but where is it? But there was that crazy story about, and I might've told this on the last podcast, I can't remember, but how where is it? Oh, here it is. In 1851, I guess, the 6-man crew won the America's Cup in the 53-mile regatta, like the ship sail or whatever. And they won it for, oh my gosh, how many years? I'm skimming.
A bunch.
132 years.
Yeah.
I mean, they never lost. And then Australia too came in, and they were like, how in the world are we going to beat this team after 132 years? And he said, if you haven't tasted victory in 132 years, it's hard to imagine any other outcome than defeat. But the first thing you need to do is convince yourself that winning is possible. And he said, it's that you have to flip the script. And so he said that they recorded themselves, what was it? Beginning with the end in mind. They recorded themselves, the sound of the sailboat cutting through the water. to win, and they recorded that, and all the crew was instructed to listen to it twice a day, and they did that every day for 3 years. So before they even set sail, they had already won the race 2,190 times in their mind, and then they actually won. And it was just crazy. I was just that story like blew me away. I immediately like read that to Adam the next morning because I was reading. He goes to bed earlier than me, so I was reading. As soon as he woke up, I was like, I gotta read you this story. But I just thought that was so cool.
I love that. And I think this kind of ties into something I have seen in one of our classes or heard Gary say or something before. Is a lot of people, you have limiting beliefs that you can't do something, but yet you haven't even tried it once. And until you actually have tried something and tried it over and over and over again, because that's one of the things he says almost anyone can accomplish anything if they work at it long enough. And so a lot of times we just either automatically assume we can't do something, or we try it a couple of times and we stop because we don't think it's possible either.
I totally agree. I totally agree. We've talked about this before, but I just love that he talks about in the book going after dreams that are destined to fail without divine intervention. He said, I want to accomplish things that I can't take the credit for. And one of the books I read last year was Crazy Faith. And the whole book was about that. And I just thought, man, that is so good. And he went back in here and he said one of my favorite quotes ever. God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And I just keep reminding myself of that. If it's his will and it's for his glory, it qualifies for his favor. And that's all there is to it. And you just have to keep thinking about that. And I think, go ahead.
Yeah, I think something that really impacted me that he said along those lines was that he does the little things like they're big things so that God can do the big things like they're little things.
Yes. I
just reading that passage in the book gave me courage to realize, it's kind of like the 4 C's, really, honestly. What are big enough commitments that I know there's no way that I can do it like they're little things, like they're big things. But in the end, God will do the big things just like they're little things.
Yeah. And how much it needs to be big enough stuff, like you say, that makes you wet your pants, or want to wet your pants. Let's see. What else did you have?
Constantly consistent. He talked about people that are successful are constantly consistent and they make time to make it happen. So I thought about that a lot because I love, and I think you're the same way, I love new ideas. I love new shiny objects. And so this is something I've really consciously had to make a conscious effort because I actually almost don't like the boring, because the other thing he said was mundane excellence. So they kind of tie into each other. You got to do the mundane excellent and you got to do it constantly, consistently, constantly, and that's hard for me because I like new ideas better than I like old ones that I have to keep doing and learning at a deeper level. But I think if you study any really, really successful person, they figure out what the little key successful pieces are and they're disciplined in those areas and they may be mundane, but they never quit them.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so good. I was trying to think I just heard a Craig Rochelle quote and I cannot think of what it was, but it was something, it was like we encourage a lot, but we don't, and the endurance doesn't last long. Anyway, it went with that. I'll try to think of it. It was really good. I did have one sentence in here that reminded me of you and I, because we both want to read more of the Bible. And I know that's been a goal of yours a lot, to get through the whole Bible. And it's hard, and I circled this and put stars next to it when he said, the goal isn't getting through scripture, it's getting scripture through you. And I was like, man, I need to think about that when I'm like, oh, I don't understand this, or I don't necessarily want to read the Bible today.
Well, and I tell you, I was in the car with Anna last week when I was in Ohio, and she has this podcast. I'll have to find out which one it is and tell you about it. But it's the Bible podcast, but it's a girl that's reading it.
Oh, and I know what it is.
It's really good because it made me realize that because I've heard the word so many times, read the Bible, that I almost feel like I just kind of got stuck on that word. And the truth is, I'm sometimes learn more complicated things better if I listen. So I downloaded this podcast, and she said there's another place you go and they talk about dissect the verses that she just went through, but it was really short. It was really good. She does it on the way to the office in the morning. It's called Bible Recap.
Oh, I feel like I might have heard of that actually.
Yes. And it's called the Bible Recap.
Oh, cool. I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, because it's, especially like if you're getting dressed in the morning or you just sitting there, because sometimes I sit there with my coffee and I don't want to turn on the light or anything to read because Jim's still sleeping sometimes. Yeah. And so I have these glasses, of course, that are my, my headphones. So I can turn those on and be listening to that. So I'm going to.
Oh, that's a great idea.
I'm going to give that one a shot too, because I think I've gotten stuck just thinking about the word read, and read might not be the best method for me. And again, if something's not working that is super important to me, my system is broken, or I need to try something different.
Yeah, totally. I had one little last thing or two, but I circled this to tell to Addison and Amelia in regards to they're so competitive with their tennis and all that stuff. But I like how he talked about well-defined goals. And he said, anything less than 70% effort actually maintains the status quo. You have to attempt things that are just beyond your ability. And he said there is no point at which performance maxes out and additional practice does not lead to further improvement. So he said, in other words, don't stop at 10,000 hours, keep practicing till the day you die. That's what winning the day is all about. And I just thought that was so good, because I think a lot of times people think that they get to a point where their performance is so good or they've mastered something and then they can just stop practicing it. But the reality is that you really can't stop. You should practice until the day that you die, because you just continue to grow. And there's scientific proof behind that. And I just thought that was really cool. Actually, I'm going to go a little bit deeper in that. I wanted to Google one of the guys he talked about in there when he told that story, because I just think that that's good, especially if people are in doing sports or some sort of competition.
Yeah, I love that. He did a really cool story. You kind of remember the one about the kite. He talks about don't underestimate the little bitty steps, because they could be actually leading to some big breakthrough or big thing. And he tells the story about, I guess they were trying to get something across. I guess there was no bridge from Canada to the US or something like that. Yeah. I probably got that botched up. But anyway,
I can't remember where
some 15-year-old kid comes, and they gave this contest, and when the winner got $10. It was nothing big. But what they did is finally they tried rockets, they tried everything to get something across. And this little boy started with a kite, and it broke, and he had to go back. It took him so many days to go back and get the broken kite and put it back together. But eventually they realized that if they put that one little kite string across, then eventually they put a bigger piece with the kite and a bigger piece. And eventually that's how they got something started for the bridge. That was pretty cool. And what he was saying in that is, we tend to only look for the big things instead of realizing that sometimes our little bitty steps is moving us monumentally towards something that we want. And we're not happy because it's not a big step.
Yeah, I think that's great. He's got the best stories. I'm like, where does he find all these stories?
Yeah.
I love them. I mean, on like every other page I've written, good story, great story.
Yeah. Every one of his was a story.
Oh my gosh. So good. The last big, there were so many, I could keep going on and on, but the last one that I think was huge for me was, and just to continue to remind myself of this, he said, two people can encounter the same obstacle. They could have a difficult diagnosis, a bitter divorce, or even the death of a loved one. Yet the outcome on the other side could be very different. One person owns his or her pain while the other person is owned by it. One person becomes better while the other person becomes bitter. And I thought, man, that is so good to think about, especially just even with little things. Those things, a diagnosis, a divorce, a death, those are huge things. But even with little things, like, are you letting something make you better, or are you letting it make you bitter? And I just think, I wrote that on a little sticky note and put it on my book that I write in every day, because I just thought, I feel like I'm not a very bitter person. But when I was thinking about that, I was thinking, well, there's might be some instances where I'm not letting it make me better. I'm actually getting mad. You know what I mean? And I just thought that was just such a great reminder. He just said, even if you go through pain, you just have to come to terms with it and ask yourself how it can make you better instead of bitter.
Yeah, I think this was a different place, but he talked about how we don't know. And he went back to the Bible several times and explained situations where the people in the Bible had no idea that their story, their pain, or their whatever was actually for a bigger purpose later, for generations down the road. And so I think that really made me realize that there is such a much bigger picture that I can't let anything bad or whatever that happens feel like it's, put that much emphasis in it, because it could be, and I said this when Andrew was dying, when my son-in-law was dying. Jimmy was really struggling. He really struggled. And he just, he's kind of thinking, why would God let this happen and stuff like that. And I said, Jimmy, you and I don't know that this isn't happening so that Ellie grows up someday and puts her mind to finding a cure for cancer.
Yeah.
That's, and I said that before I'd even read his book, but he explains that so well. He tells 2 or 3 stories where you don't realize it at the time, but this Bible story that was going on really opened something up way on later down in history because of the something that happened. That made me realize that I need to think in such bigger terms of just, my measly little blink of an eye that I'm here, think more generationally.
Well, that was probably one of my favorite parts of the book. And I think it was the, trying to find it. It was the Elon Musk story.
Oh, that's right. His grandparents. That was it. I love that story.
I remember they flew all the way to wherever, and they were the only people that had ever done it by themselves. And then they kept doing it over and over. And where is it? And he said, you may not recognize their name, but you would recognize, here it is. Yeah. His Joshua and Winifred Haldeman. And they ended up doing they
flew around the world before anyone else.
They shipped they took apart in 1948 their single engine plane, packed it into crates and shipped it to South Africa. And then they reassembled it when they got there themselves. And then 4 years later, they took a 30,000-mile round trip flight from Africa to Australia and back. They're believed to be the only private pilots to have ever made the flight in a single engine airplane. There's like no comparison to what they did, basically. And they go on to tell the story. And then he said, few people have heard of the Haldermans, but I bet you've heard of their grandson, Elon Musk. And it goes on to say throughout his childhood, he noted one of his biographers. He heard many stories about his grandfather's adventures and sat through countless slideshows that documented his travels. And those stories were the shoulders that he stood on. And yes. I thought that was the coolest thing. I'm like, man, we don't even think about that. We just think about the today, the now.
And, because of that, remembering that story in the book, when I was running with my girlfriends this morning, we went out for our run. And I said, look, if any of you guys are lucky enough to have an elderly grandparent or parent still alive, please get them on video and tell their history and their story. Because I realized that had he not been hearing their story, that might not have inspired him to do what he's doing now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I wish so badly that I would have done that. Like I loved when you, didn't you get Betty cooking on?
The chicken dressing. And I'm so sad I didn't get Jim's mom, because she had this cutest little giggle, and it would have been such a treasure for our kids but you just don't realize how important that stuff is until you get older. I wish I had realized it a lot sooner, but you're just going through life so fast. But he says in here, telling your children and grandchildren the history is very, very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I actually just found on my phone the other day, my papa was like the biggest jokester ever. He told the funniest jokes, and I actually found several that I had recorded him. And and he's the only one of my grandparents that I actually have any video of like that. And I told my mom, I said, man, I wish that we had this for everybody. Cause I just like, you love it. It's something you can show. And I told my brother, I was like, you need to show these to Graham, cause he'll think that it's hilarious, Yeah,
that's great. That's awesome. Well, Dani, any final thoughts about Win the Day? I just say, get the book by Mark Batterson. Be sure and read it. I'm going to reread this one. This is going to be on one of my rereads. I'm going to put on my reread list, just like Love Work. So if you haven't read it, be sure and get it and read it.
Absolutely. Anything by Mark Batterson is great. And the best thing about this one for me is just thinking about accomplishing more in the habits that you have, but it's not the habits that you would think. It's like bigger, deeper habits. And the last thing I circled, I loved, he said, your miracle may be closer than you think. The question is, are you willing to try the other side? It's the little steps of obedience that often take the most faith. And I just think there's so many, like even for like not a person of faith, just a business person. There's so many good things in here about the way that you can run your business and your life. But I personally love that he kind of ties it to like little pieces of faith. So I think it's awesome. Love it so much.
Yeah, loved it. Well, if you have not, please hit subscribe below. And remember, Dana is going for 500 5-star reviews. So please help Dana hit her goal. We don't want Dana not hitting a goal. And if you have an idea, a thought, an opportunity, a challenge that you'd like for Dana and I to discuss, or a guest that you believe would be good on our podcast that you'd love to hear from, any favorite authors or speakers or influencers, let us know. We will certainly reach out and get them on our podcast, and reach out to us at info@everything life and real estate. And be sure and pass this podcast along to any business person or realtor that you think would benefit from these conversations. And Dana, I'll see you after my spring break.
I know. I hope you have a good time. But before we go, hold on. I have to say thank you to one of our reviews. I was going to read this to you. It was so great. Teresa Barron, thank you for leaving. She said, simply the best. Listen in and you will see what I mean. I love how these two operate and share their wisdom. They know their know-how is exactly what is needed for our industry today. And I'm thankful for all they bring to the table. She's a broker in Ohio at Take a Look Real Estate Broker. So
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. And I ran into a girl in Oklahoma when I was teaching. Her name is Jennifer. And she said, I listen to you guys every single morning as I'm getting dressed in the morning. I love it. I feel like I'm just right there with you. So thank you, Jennifer, for listening also.
Awesome. Well, have a good spring break and I'll see you next week.
See you, Dana. Thank you.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.